From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Maybe I need to start in the trash truck business.
Don't rule it out.
So my body holds about 11 units of blood, the average human body, guy my size, and I had 22 units put in because I had 2 full oil changes.
He's airborne, and then I'm above him.
Inverted.
All at the same time. Yeah, you're just like, wow, that's a wild picture.
Boom, and then it goes boom, and it comes back out.
I hang up on the guy. I go, who's this? This is Deion Sanders. I go, yeah, nice try. See you later.
Bounce, and then this insane roll. That thing sent it.
No. It's okay, we come back. They just do it.
Man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
If I was a few years older, you might be calling me Grandpappy. I think, all right.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Scott Dixon.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Lee.
I'm Travis Pastrana.
Hey, I'm Antron Brown.
I'm Kelly Jones, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. Once again, we're inside of the beautiful Fatheads Eyewear Studios. I'm Ken Stout. Rico Elmore is sitting alongside. We have a great guest, as always, on this show. Mr. Kelly Jones has joined us. We'll talk about his accomplishments here in just a couple of moments when we're done scanning the room. Mr. Michael Young, of course, running the controls, as always. Right. And our own Miss Julie Natus is also in the studio. So looking forward to this one. I had a chance to speak with Kelly a little bit before we started the show here today, and I said I really enjoy a guest like Kelly because I know absolutely nothing about him. A lot of times I have base knowledge on a lot of the people that we come in here, and of course I do a little bit more homework, but I really know very, very little about Kelly. And kind of stumbled onto Kelly. We were at the Shiloh Auto Club, or I was at the Shiloh Auto Club. Is that
How
what
do
it's
you
called?
say that?
Silo.
Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
What do we have
Yeah,
a Western or something?
They'll be mad at me over there. But went over there. That's when I saw Scott Hoke.
Yep.
Was doing that deal over there.
The bathroom, weird.
And I was cruising around, taking a look at some of the cars, and of course I met one of your employees there, where you have your simulator company. And was looking inside and gave me a quick tour and was extremely impressed with the layout. And then, of course, he handed me your business card and then did a little bit of homework. And I was like, oh, man, we've got to get this guy on the show. So for a decade, he was a F-16 combat pilot, another better part of 10 years, I think 8 years on commercial airlines, and then some 20 plus years in racing as a coach at some of the highest levels, IndyCar and IMSA, NASCAR, I believe, as well. So very accomplished guest here, to say the least. So I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit, man, and learn about your life and reading how your involvement in the Air Force translated right into something in racing where you felt like you could help a lot of people by carrying that regiment over. So I find it fascinating that your life, from what I've been able to read about so far. But I can tell you that I don't think I know another combat pilot. One of my best friends in life was captain of a gunship in Vietnam, helicopter, obviously, and my uncle flew multi-engines. He had a multi-engine license for the Coast Guard. And I think that's about it. I know you have obviously some involvement.
Alan, our buddy that was with Rev, is a Navy pilot.
Okay.
Combat guy.
So,
but I don't know. Is Navy better than Air Force? How's that?
I think it depends. It depends on who you ask, probably. Yeah.
Wing it out there.
Yeah.
Let's get it going here.
Yeah.
So talk to me, man. How did that all come about? How did you, as a young boy, as developing into a man, decide, hey, man, I want to chase this path. I want to be a combat pilot.
So I think, like a lot of young people, young men, kids, boys, whatever, policeman, fireman, race car driver, astronaut, kind of a thing. And that's kind of the general spectrum of what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. And I think I have to thank, I have a couple of uncles to thank. My mom's brother-in-law, my aunt's husband, he was a private pilot and aerospace engineer. And when we were kids, we went out to visit them in Los Angeles, and he took us up in his single engine plane out at the Compton airport. And from 6 years old at that point, I said, yeah, I want to be a pilot. fast forward to high school, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, college, that sort of thing. So in high school, I reading Boys Life magazine, the Boy Scouts magazine kind of a thing, and there was a little thing there, say, send in this card, and we'll send you a pamphlet about the Air Force Academy, United States Air Force Academy. And so I sent that in, and they sent me their pamphlet, their booklet, and I knew, hey, that's what I want to do. It's the flying, it's the school as far as the academics, being a excellent engineering school, and then becoming a pilot after that, and then going on from there, fighter pilot, test pilot, astronaut was the career path I wanted. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's super cool to hear how this develops. And we have a couple of segments here to go over with you because I've got a lot of questions, man.
Mhm.
So you decide to follow this path with your goal of being a pilot, and I don't want to put you on the spot here. You might not know the answer to this, but what is the percentage of people that that apply to be want to be a fighter pilot, but apply to be a fighter pilot and then actually do it? That number has to be very small.
It is. I would say just off the top of my head, about maybe 1 or 2%. The narrowing down process is quite severe. So for example, i- out of the real quick, about 2,000 kids in my age group went into the Air Force Academy, our class of 1989. Out of that, about 40,000 applied. And so the academy is one of the most, what's the word, selective schools, to colleges, universities to get into. And so then
Don't you have to get a reference? Somebody has to, a congressman or somebody like that. Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah,
Well, go
congressman,
ahead.
senator, or president or vice president nomination to be nominated. And then your 4 years through there, that's all competitive. And now you get to choose where you go to flight school based upon your rank order academically, your academic performance at the academy. Then you get to flight school, and say out of class of 25 students in flight school, roughly 2 or 3 of you will get the chance to fly fighters. So it's a very rigorous selection process. And right away they lay into you, Mr. Booger, what do you think you're doing? Eye strain, stand at attention, that kind of a thing.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach, innovation is our life force.
You're looking at the president of Racecraft one of the simulator companies that's here in the Indianapolis area. Very, very cool looking facility as well. It's housed at the Silo Auto Club on the southeast side of Indianapolis. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper as we go along here. I want to go back to what we were talking about because I would like to know the progression. And you talked about some of the numbers that applied at the school that you went to and then eventually whittled them down to become a fighter pilot. So talk to me about that a little bit more. I want to know how long it took. I want to know some of the progression, some of the criteria that it takes to make that. I mean, that's the elite of this country, and dare I say the elite of the world.
The Air Force Academy, their selection process, they want a well-rounded individual. They want the academics, the athleticism, the after-school activities, the community service type, something that's going to make a good leader. And of course, as you can imagine, if you're not strong in one area, but you're stronger in others, then they will, it's a full composite kind of a thing. You apply to your congressman or senator, the president or the vice president, to compete for a nomination. Each congressman, senator, each of those individuals is able to nominate and have at any one time 6 individuals at each of the 4 military academies. And so they have their own selection process. So I flew into Washington. I went to Washington, D.C., interviewed with Congressman Jim Moody, who was 5th District of Wisconsin at the time. And this was in 1983. And interviewed with him. He had his interview process, that sort of thing.
How old were you then?
I was 16.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I was 16.
That's kind of, I was trying to
Already a pressure cooker for a 16-year-old.
I was doing the math and I was like, hold on, he had to be like 15 or 16.
Fortunately, I earned the nomination from Congressman Moody, and then the Academy has their selection process. So once you're nominated by your representative, doesn't necessarily mean that you've earned the appointment yet to the Academy. And so and so then you have that selection process. You have to go have a physical fitness test. You have to take a medical test where they medical screening, and then they also you send them your transcripts. I'm sorry, is it transcripts they call for grades?
Yeah.
Your grades.
Mine wasn't great.
Okay, yeah.
Apparently yours was better.
Maybe, perhaps, yeah.
It's going out on a limb.
Yeah, yeah. SAT scores, all that plays into that. And so I was fortunate enough to earn the appointment. And so I remember this. It was July 6th of 1985, where jumped on an airplane. My parents took me to the airport. My parents had come to me that time, took me to the airport, and you should see, the look in my eyes. I was kind of like, what have I got myself into, kind of a thing, because you hear the stories about basic training and how rigorous it is and all of that. And sure enough, I remember landing in Colorado Springs, Air Force Academy, buses pick us up. They take us to the academy, the campus there. The campus area where we walk is called the Terrazzo, and the buses pull up there, and you come off. We come walking off the buses, and everyone's wearing whatever clothes they're wearing, but all the cadets there, the upperclassmen, are wearing their uniforms, and right away they lay into you, Mr. Booger, what do you think you're doing? You eyes straight, stand at attention, that kind of a thing. So.
Welcoming committee, of course.
Exactly. It was a very warm welcome. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome home.
Yeah. Glad you're here.
It's the assembly line. Shave your head. They shave your hair. They don't shave, but they cut it real short. Everyone, and of course, people look different without hair.
Oh yeah.
And you can't even, sometimes it's hard to recognize. So we're all these, acorn head people just walking around, with, your fellow, that kind of thing. They take your clothes away from you. Not take them, but you give them your clothes. You change into
your street clothes. Yeah.
You change to
your civilian clothes are gone. Yeah.
Right. And you don't get to wear those. You don't get to wear those for a year. The first year you can't wear civilian clothes. You have to be in uniform. You have to wear a uniform everywhere you go. So basic training, 10 weeks, and then you are accepted into the cadet wing. The wing is the unit of the academy. That's the unit name for it. The unit. What's the word I'm looking for? The size of that component. And then 1 year the first year, you're marching everywhere you go, and you have to march on the Terrazzo has marble strips. It's squares, large squares, maybe the size of this room, 100 feet by 100 feet. And each one is ringed by a marble strip. And so freshmen have to walk on the strips, and you have to have your eyes caged ahead. You have to greet all the upperclassmen as they come by. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. That sort of thing. Rigorous table decorum when you're seated at the seat at the meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. But so after that first year, during that first year, you gradually fall into the routine. Your uniform is always sharp. Your bed is always made, hospital corners, that kind of a thing. You usually sleep on top of your bed because it saves time from getting in it and having to make it up again.
Little tricks.
Yeah.
I like that.
And a lot of detail. Let me speed this up a bit. So first year, then you're accepted you're recognized as it's a recognition week.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
So I don't want to speed it up.
Okay.
Let's take a quick break because I want to hear the rest of this.
I'm with you 100%. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more from Mr. Kelly Jones.
And 1 week with not much food. What I grew from that was I got rid of all my food aversions.
Welcome back to The Skinny. We're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We have Mr. Kelly Jones on the show with us. He's walking us through what it takes to become an F-16 fighter pilot. Yes, he was a fighter pilot and then a commercial pilot and eventually morphed his way into the racing industry, which is, of course, how we met him. So you were in the midst of walking us through as you're making your progression to hopefully become a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm. So after the first year, towards the end of the first year, you're accepted as into the cadet wing. You're recognized, and now the rigid regimen is quite relaxed. You don't now you're free to walk where wherever you like to walk, kind of a thing. You have
so now you're the guy jacking what the kids coming at.
Well, some folks see it as payback, or hey, I'm gonna get that kind of a thing, and in a way, I was very. I remember my sophomore year, as a third classman, they call it fourth classman, third classman, second classman, first classman. That's how the progression. But as a third classman, I was rather motivated and wanted our freshmen to be really sharp. I put a lot of time into that, but also I led by example, um, and so what's great about the military is you learn, you do, and then you teach. It's that first year you're learning, and then that the second, third, and fourth year you're doing, and eventually as you move up the ranks within the cadet wing, now you're leading and teaching. So summer after your first year, everyone has to go through land survival school, which is a challenge. It's you go roughly about 1 week with the only food you have. You have some emergency rations, but other than that, you have to live off the land. You spend 1 week before that week when you're out in the field. We're in classroom in the auditorium learning about how to identify edible plants, how to catch critters, how to set traps, snares, those sorts of things. And so you learn, then you're back in the field, you're actually doing it. And 1 week with not much food, what I grew from that was I got rid of all my food aversions. As a kid, I couldn't stand eating mushy food, but after that,
got over that pretty quick.
Yeah.
You're starving to death.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then the third week, then you're in a simulated POW camp, and so they put you through simulated stresses that you would experience if you were captured by an adversary, by the enemy, and you learn how to resist interrogation techniques and things like that. And I learned a lot from that too. It was, if you can imagine, just that first year, getting through that first year, you learn a lot about how you can expand your own limits. You learn about. For me, it was eye opening that just what one can accomplish. Given the
developing your mental strength.
Absolutely.
How much your body can take.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. I accidentally fell into boxing as a sport. Freshmen get last choice of sports, and for intramural, everyone has to do either intramurals, intercollegiate, or something like band, marching band, that sort of thing. I remember Cadet Tony Houston, second classman, a junior. He came in our class, our dorm room. My roommates were Rob Ubello and Barras Rosser, and so we all snapped to attention. And he says, "Jones, how much do you weigh?" I said, "Sir, I weigh 145 pounds." He said, "Okay, we need a 146 pounder for the intramural boxing team. How'd you like to try boxing?" Which he was polite enough to ask. Yeah.
He wasn't really asking, was he?
No, he wasn't. But
somewhat leading, but yeah.
Yeah. And so that whole first part of that season, I had a lot of practice in catching gloves with my nose, kind of a thing. but then
character builder.
More character building. But then halfway through, I'm sparring with the good guy on our team at 146 pounds, and I think the sense of timing just came to me. And next thing, and now during that sparring session, I'm dancing, moving, sticking and moving, dodging, peppering with jabs, right hands, and it was like that breakthrough moment. I'm sure many of us it's that breakthrough when any new endeavor that you take, and that suddenly it kind of clicks. So I did that for the next 3 years, boxing, and I competed in the academy championship. And I was runner-up my sophomore year. Junior year, academics hit hard, and senior year, I was academy champion. And then I was Midwest regional champion. We had our Midwest championships right at Xavier University down the road near Dayton, Ohio, just outside of Cincinnati, I should say. Won the gold medal there, and then at national championships, I won the bronze medal. What I've wanted to do as far as my dream of become fighter pilot, test pilot, astronaut could be gone like that.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studios. This is The Skinny. We have Mr. Kelly Jones that has joined us here in the set. I'm Ken Stout, Rico Elmore, of course, the track dude back there running all the controls. And Kelly, you've been walking us through this progression. I'm guessing we're getting pretty close. By the way, no clue that you were a boxer, much less a gold medalist. So that's pretty cool.
Better watch what you say.
Yeah, right. Fortunately for me, you're sitting closer.
Right. You get him all tuned up. He throws it right at me.
Yeah, exactly. I'll hold you up, pal.
Yes. Yeah. Get him.
So keep going, man. I feel like we're getting close.
My junior year, my senior year, I was a survival instructor. So I went back to the survival school as an instructor. And then and then came graduation. So graduated from the academy. I did very well. I had about I did pretty academic. I did well. I had about a 3.4 grade point average, and with the course load, it was a double overload with the course load and with the language minor. And so I got my choice. I got pretty much my choice of which flight school to go to. I went to Reese Air Force Base, which was in Lubbock, Texas. And so you graduate. I had the summer off. We had some time during the summer. I came back and coached, helped coach the boxing team to give back during that time.
At the academy.
At the academy, the academy's
cool.
boxing team, and then off to flight school. And so you're commissioned. Now you're a second lieutenant. You're an officer in the Air Force. You've got your bachelor's degree and some respect, kind of a thing. But then it all starts over. You start over as a newbie again at flight school. And flight school was very rigorous. It was very demanding, and it's about a 30% washout rate. Just washing out, just to make it through the program. Every morning, at the beginning of class, every morning, you have to recite whatever part of the aircraft manual or flight procedures that you were supposed to memorize during that week. And at the end of every week, you have a quiz. If you fail the quiz, you're grounded the next week, kind of a thing. So I got into trouble in flight school. Not in the flying aspect, but in the driving aspect. I mean, in I had my senior year when I graduated, I got a sports car, a little Mazda RX-7. And, I spent the weekend, it was Thanksgiving weekend. I spent that weekend working on the car, had a little oil leak, and I got that fixed. And then I was speeding, basically, and it ended up having a crash. I crashed, and I was pulled out of flight school for 4 months.
Did they think reckless?
Yeah. I mean, I was charged with my biggest charge was a Class C misdemeanor that I was charged with.
But did the powers that be think you were reckless because this happened?
They didn't know. The powers that be, as far as my commander at the time, they had the mental health department, personality battery, that sort of thing, and other things, and plus being on probation, I was pulled out of flight school and I worked in the primary care clinic. I was the person. It was like almost like a intern kind of a thing, and so I would the folks that would come there, I would take their records or pull their records for them and coordinate between that sort of thing. And rather than wearing my flight suit, now I'm wearing what we call our blues, our button-up shirt and slacks, kind of a thing. And so everyone knew who I was. Everyone knew. Matter of fact, everyone Air Force wide pretty much knew who I was, because there's a monthly letter, this in the news as far as these are the mishaps that happened, and I was Lieutenant X who did this, that, and the other, that kind of a thing. So now I'm faced with, what I've wanted to do as far as my dream of become fighter pilot, test pilot, astronaut could be, it could be gone like that. I'll shorten, long story short. There was a Navy Reserve flight surgeon who said, "Hey, what's your situation?" He says, "Well, instead of waiting for your commander to call you, why don't you make an appointment, show some initiative, and make an appointment with your commander to go talk with him?" And so sure enough, I did. I went in, and John DePuro was his name, Lieutenant Colonel at the time. And he said, "Hey, look, let's be honest. I have to make a decision here whether, you're such a hothead that we shouldn't risk putting you back into flight school." It reminds me of the scene from the first Top Gun when they get pulled in for busing the tower and
Right.
everything, and the guy's like, I can't believe I got to send you guys a top, kind of a thing. And I told Lieutenant Colonel DePere, I said, look, if you put me back in the cockpit, I'll show that you made the right decision. And sure enough, he did. So I'm back there, I was screaming with intercom, I'm like, "Woo!" and unload, and I'm trying to fix my gear, and I'm not quite yet. He lays another turn,
The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Skinny. I'm Ken Stout, Rico Elmore sitting right alongside, and Mr. Kelly Jones has been walking us through the process of becoming a fighter pilot, F-16 fighter pilot, and we're right on the brink here. We're going to get to the answer here in this segment, but it's been fascinating, dude. It really, really is. I love all of the information, so get us in that jet, man.
Sure enough, so my first instructor, Melissa McDonald, first flight school instructor. I mean, awesome pilot, outstanding pilot. And she went to bat for me when they were trying to decide whether to put me back in the flight school. And so given that second chance, I didn't want to leave any excuses for to receive other than any aircraft other than what I wanted. And so I worked my tail off just every day, perfect uniform, every day, knowing all the knowledge that we had to know, studying. If I had free time on the flight line, I would hit the books and study. And it turns out that, it all paid off.
So you weren't out raising hell in the RX-7 anymore?
No, the RX-7 was no more. It was gone. Matter of fact,
It had more than an oil leak?
Yeah. It was, yeah. I had to crawl out of that. The car was upside down, and I had to crawl out of the hatchback. That's how bad the wreck was. And so I didn't. So I graduated number one in my class, unofficial number one. We couldn't make it official because of my history, but it was unofficial number one, and they gave me my choice of aircraft, and I chose the F-16. And so that was finished. That was in fall of 1990, and then I report to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, which was the F-16, one of two F-16 training bases at the time. And I remember the in brief. The captain who was briefing us, he's telling us about how the F-16 can sustain 9 Gs, and not lose speed. And you can do 9 Gs all day long until you run out of fuel. And you can turn it on its tail and it'll accelerate straight up. And we're just hearing him talk about that. It's like what Iceman said, just give me a hard up. That kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And our first flight, oftentimes our first flight, of course, you learn how to take off and land. That's the first thing. But even before that, you're in the simulator, and the first part of each phase of training, you do the first part you spend in the simulator. You do everything in the sim first, because if you're going to make your big mistakes, you want to make them there and learn from them there, versus when you're at the risk of actual hardware and actual lives. Yeah, and I remember my first. And also early on, they have 2-seater F-16s. About 10% of the fleet are 2-seaters, where you have the instructor pilot in the back and the student in the front. But sometimes they'll have an instructor pilot who's in a 2-seater, but he's just training. He's training his wingmen, and the back seat may be empty, and you can do what they call a sandbag flight. Sandbag for weight. You're just a sandbag in the back seat. And so I did a sandbag flight with Lieutenant Colonel Bean at the time. This is how I got my first call sign, Peanut. And with your gear, the gear tour, you wear your flight suit, and then over your flight suit, you wear these. They're like Western chaps. but they zip up and they have inflatable bladders. They go around your, and those bladders inflate when you pull when with the onset of G's to squeeze your extremities to help keep the blood in your head and not G-lock, not lose consciousness because the blood drains from your head when you're turning really hard. So you're wearing that, plus you're wearing a harness, and you've got chest strap over across each thigh, much like we strap in the race car. Turns out I hadn't positioned one of my leg straps just right. And so Colonel Bean calls fights on, and he lays into this 8G turn, and my personal equipment wasn't positioned properly, and I'm getting squeezed,
Oh, another, I won't forget that next time.
Yeah. So I'm back there, I'm screaming with intercom, I'm like, "Ooh," and he's unloading, and I'm trying to fix my gear, and he's like, not quite yet. He lays another turn, So after the flight, he says, "Hey, Lieutenant Jones, what was all that noise back there?" And I told him what it was, and sure enough, at our naming ceremony, they named me Peanut for that. So that was my first call sign. Yeah.
Thank you for your service, by the way. I meant to say that earlier to you, and so give us some more of the scoop here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And so flying the jet is just, as you can imagine, 500-600 knots, 6-7 Gs, 8 Gs, 9 Gs is normal. And so you got to be fit. You got to be, and you got to be more muscle mass versus aerobic fitness, because you want the strain to elevate your heart rate quickly, so to help keep the blood pumped up to your head. You don't want to be out, as far as your training regimen, it's not so much running marathons, it's more, training to build mass. And so that's another thing I enjoyed about flying the jet, was how physical it was. And I love being on defense, because when you're on defense, you're turned around looking behind you like this, and you have to move, and you're doing this at 4, 5, 6, 7, it's a very physical thing. And I just love that about it. And then all of the information that you have to process, you visually have to see, is this guy's nose, when is he pulling lead? When is his nose in front far enough to take a cannon shot? And if that's you have to be able to then change your direction before to spoil his solution. And that's air to air to ground. You've got missiles, you've got, when you're flying at 500 feet, 500 knots, and you turn, you pop, and you roll in like this, it gives you about 5 to 8 seconds to visually acquire the target and then aim, and that sort of thing. And that comes from target study. Then you got threat study. You got to study who your adversaries are, where they're located, what indications will you get on your radar detector, what indications, where we be able to pick them up on your radar, those sorts of things. And so, what guys and gals do on the racetrack is very similar. It's a dynamic environment. It's at speed. You're in close formation, wheel to wheel racing, sometimes closer than that, and all this information you have to process. Okay. We need you to conserve fuel. What fuel rate do you want? Oh, I need, this much per lap. We need to set this lap time, this kind of thing. So you have to balance all of that. You got your spotter in your ear who's telling, all of that stuff.
The spotters.
Yeah.
We've got him running. If you haven't noticed, he just climbed out of the jet and went right into a race car. So we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to find out how all of this applies towards the racing industry.
Want to get the skinny on other guests in different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Kelly Jones, chief instructor, as you can read there on his shirt, has joined us here in the studio. F-16 combat fighter pilot, also in the commercial airline industry, and since then has been in the racing world. And he just spent the previous segments talking about his accomplishments here, of course, making his way through flight school and into the cockpit of an F-16 fighter pilot, and now how that translates into his business and the racing world. He's coached at the highest levels, IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA, and he has a simulator company called Racecraft One here in the Indianapolis area, southeast side. I would urge you to look it up. You can get in there. Doesn't matter if you're a novice or if you're extremely experienced, there's something there for you. You will have a great time. So I would certainly look into that. But let's talk about your business, man, the Racecraft One. You and I had chatted a little bit off camera here before. I believe the better part of 11 or 12 sims, and I have seen them personally. They're beautiful. But people, you can actually hold a race in there with 10 or 11 people at the same time, simulated race on a race course. And my guess is almost any type of car that you want to do that. But more importantly, you can really help develop drivers on that sim, much like you were talking about you did in a jet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In the jet, about 10% of our flight time, if you will, is in the sim. And as an instructor pilot and a mission commander, we actually have formal schools that we go through, a formal regimen we go through to qualify as an instructor and as an evaluator. And with that, you learn how to utilize all the tools at your disposal to best reach your student. Your student may have a question, there may be a concept that they're just not quite getting, and you may explain it to them, at the end of one flight, and the light bulb still doesn't come on. And you have to go home and think, okay, my student didn't get it. How can I word it differently or create or some analogy or something so that they'll better understand and grasp this concept? And oftentimes, I might, the light bulb comes on. Oh, maybe I could try this. You know what I mean? And so the next morning I'll go in and I'll sit down with the student. I'll say, hey, it's like doing this. It's like this. Have you've done this before. It's like this. And then you'd see the light bulb come on in their head, and now you're airborne flying with them. And sure enough, they got it. They've got whatever it is, whatever that technique, that skill that you're trying to impart, they've got it down now. And when you come back in and debrief and you look at the video, you look the video and the audio, and you replay everything and you reconstruct everything on the whiteboard, and they're feeling so much better because, they're feeling great because they're making progress. And then for me, that's the biggest joy that myself and my instructors get, my coaches get, is seeing our students, the light bulb come on, you see them get the idea, and you see them go out there and excel. And so I'm very, very pleased to have been here in Indianapolis since 2011. I came here with just two sims, not 11, on the invitation of Jim Leo of Fitness Training. And we realized that, hey, drivers can get their fitness training here, and right down the hall to my room. It was a 10 by 11 foot room at the time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And get their racecraft training. And I had access to the top level drivers that Jim was training, Scott Dixon, Charlie Kimball, James Hinchcliffe, Tony Kanaan, and I could pick their brains and say, hey, what do the up and coming drivers need? What are the nuggets, the most valuable nuggets that they need so that they can excel as they're moving up the ladder towards the higher levels of racing? And that was very helpful as far as for us developing our curriculum. And our curriculum, basically, the way we teach it, I just took the way we train F-16 pilots. I was an F-16 instructor pilot, my last assignment, and I took that and I adapted that to racing. It's a different vehicle, is basically, but the mechanics are very similar. Turn signals, slip angles, G loading, scrubbing of speed. It's extremely similar. And then as I mentioned earlier, all the other information processing, multitasking, and task prioritization that you have to be able to do as a racer. And I'm so thankful that I found auto racing when I was wrapping up my Air Force career, because now I draw upon all of those things, my engineering degree, engineering background, my high performance vehicle background, the athleticism and all of that, and wrap it all into, and the communication from studying Japanese, studying foreign languages, the communication skills into what it is that we do at Racecraft One.
It is, it's an incredible opportunity for somebody to come work with someone like you. I mean, you're not the everyday guy, I mean, your accomplishments are extremely high, and to have the opportunity to come in and work and get that criteria, that program that you've developed over the course of your life, and walk in and have that available to you is pretty valuable.
Yeah, it's strange. It's like, I think a good reason, another reason why Racecraft One is successful is because in racing, when we find something that makes us better, makes us faster, we keep it a secret. You know,
All right.
in, in aviation, when we find something that makes us better, we want to get that word out as quickly and efficiently as possible. And so, my wingman, I want my wingman to be the best that he or she can be. And so the Wright brothers had a simulator. And so the aviation industry is about getting the information out in a clear, concise fashion so that everyone learns better, so we're safer, that sort of thing. And so I have to thank that, because being able to have those communication techniques of how to exchange ideas and teach and instruct is something that, I've had that professional coaching, professional training for most of my adult life. And as you said, it translates pretty well to the racing industry. We got everybody on headsets with microphones so we can heckle each other, talk smack to each other, that kind of a thing.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Mr. Kelly Jones has joined us here in the studio. He has his business, Racecraft One, down on the southeast side of Indianapolis. We've been chatting about that in the last segment. Let's chat about that a little bit more, because that is something that somebody watching the show right now can look into. If they're in the area, they can go down and have some fun. Talk to me about some of the programs, some of the prices. My guess is the range is wide.
Yes, so our services that we offer are wide. The core part of what we do is the coaching, and we keep our street cred by myself and all of our coaches are also involved in motorsports, actual driving. So and they come from different backgrounds, from oval racing, dirt, open wheel, sports cars. So it's a very good cross section, which is, and we all, as coaches, we learn from each other, for our students, we like to hand our students off to the different coaches so they get that different perspective, so they can add more to their bag of tricks. So that works out well. So the coaching is the core of what we do. Customers would start asking, "Hey, I like the sim. Where can I get one?" And so we started thinking, "Oh, okay, well, this is where I got it. But hey, and we would provide." And so that was another outgrowth, and that is providing sales, service, support, and assembly of simulators as well. And so we'll fly out to your location, wherever it may be, and we'll assemble the sim for you. We'll work with you, consult with you as far as choosing the components and the features that you like to have, or if you're just upgrading your sim, we'll do that as well. And then once we had with more simulators in our location, and especially, as you said, at the silo, that's an event space as well, and it's really cool there with the classic cars, the exotic cars, the high end and vehicles that people store there.
How many cars do you think they have there?
I'd say probably about 80 cars, about 80 cars.
More room, or are they maxed out at 80?
In that space, we're maxed out in that space, but we do have an annex, so that where we store additional cars at our annex, which is nearby.
But yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've heard nothing but Mark McAllister, a friend of mine, has some cars down there, and he would drive a different one to the track every day, and it's just really, really cool stuff. So yeah. I was asking, actually, he was the one that told me, "Oh yeah, I had this down here," that you were talking about it, and with Hoke and all that stuff. So, but yeah, just I don't think there's anything else like that in town, right?
No, I keep an eye out for it, but we're quite unique. There's no one else out there. There is another location that has maybe 3 simulators, but they're each housed in separate rooms, kind of a thing. With ours, they're all together.
Yeah.
And so we got everybody on headsets with microphones, so we can heckle each other, talk smack to each other, that kind of a thing. Christian, Ken, who you met, he's our sports broadcaster, commentator, and he'll just have you have a hard time driving just because he'll have you laughing so much, for the parties and
you wind him up. He's the same way.
Could a company have a corporate outing there?
Absolutely. Yeah. We that's another big part of our business is corporate events, corporate outings. So you'll have your team building. Yep. Eli Lilly is coming in next week. We've had JLL, a bunch of companies have come in and done their corporate events there. That's
Super cool, man.
So we'll do a corporate event for the skinny.
Yeah, sounds good to me, man.
There you go.
I'm all in.
Absolutely.
We've got to wrap things up, man. Time has just absolutely flown by. What an incredible life you've led, for sure. Thank you, like Rico said before, for your service.
It was my pleasure.
That you've done.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Look up Racecraft One. Clearly an outstanding individual to spend some time with, but you'll learn a lot. You'll have a great time. Thank you, man. We appreciate the time. Mr. Kelly Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Now you have the skinny on this guy. Pretty amazing.